Welcome to Easy Peasy Facts, the place where curiosity meets the chilling unknown, where dark truths, unsolved mysteries, and real-life nightmares come together in one haunting mix. From the Black Dahlia's gruesome murder to the ghostly halls of the Cecil Hotel, from the twisted corridors of the Winchester Mystery House to the real-life inspiration behind The Shining, to the strange numbers on secret radio waves, the cursed objects in the Warrens Museum, and eerie legends of skinwalkers and lycanthropes. We've gathered the most spine-tingling facts, from 6 to 14 unsettling details, on the most mysterious and terrifying stories ever told. This is your ultimate horror fact binge. No filler, just chills. So turn off the lights, put on your headphones, and prepare to question everything you thought was just a story. This is Easy Peasy Facts, where every fact hides a shadow.
Unsolved Mystery, 14 Interesting and Tragic Facts about Elizabeth Short, the Black Dahlia. Some people see Elizabeth Short as a real-life femme fatale from a thriller. She was a wannabe actress who walked the mean and dangerous streets of 1940s in Los Angeles, and she also had connections to some very dangerous men. Sadly, like many women of film noir, Short had a brutal end to her life, even more sadistic than most horror movies. Her senseless attack by an unknown assailant created a media frenzy that literally stopped the country in its tracks. But who was Elizabeth Short? Let's peel back the fiction and get some true facts about Elizabeth Short, aka the Black Dahlia. 1. She was number 3. Elizabeth Short was number 3 in a quintet of daughters. She was born on July 29, 1924, to Cleo Short and his wife Phoebe May Sawyer. Short's father had a great idea to make money and invested and built his own miniature golf courses. 2. He never came home. When the stock market crashed in 1929, Short's father lost everything he had. Cleo Short had a wife and 5 kids to feed, and he had no idea how he was going to do it. Despondent, he got into his car and drove to the Charlestown Bridge. Short's father didn't come home that night, or any night after that. Elizabeth Short was just 6 years old at the time. 3. She was one of many. Short went to California. She was visiting Lieutenant Joseph Gordon Fickling, whose station was in Long Beach. She got a job as a waitress in a room in a boarding house located behind a nightclub on Hollywood Boulevard. Short's boarding house was behind the Florentine Gardens, a nightclub owned by Mark Hansen. Short's roommate was Ann Toth, who was also Hansen's girlfriend. Some say that Short was also linked to Hansen romantically, which would make living with Toth a little awkward. 4. She got serious. It was during this time in Los Angeles that Elizabeth Short became more determined to start a career in show business. She had spoken to someone about appearing as an extra in a movie. She had also talked Hansen into letting her perform at his nightclub. Like other young women hanging around Hollywood, she had a 1 in a million chance of succeeding. 5. But she acted suspiciously. Toth said that Short often made furtive calls from the phone line at Florentine Gardens, Hansen's nightclub. On January 2, 1947, Short sent a letter to Toth and asked her for some money. French said that a few days after Short sent the letter, some men came to her house looking for Short. French noticed that Short was very anxious as the car pulled up in front of her home. Toth found out that Short was secretly calling a man named Maurice Clement, who worked for Columbia Studios. This was likely the man who was getting Short a job as an extra. But there was something else here. Sure, Clement worked in the movie business, but he also had ties to gangs. His circle of associates included Murder Incorporated founder Bugsy Siegel and boxer Mickey Cohen, both known for being brutal in their many illicit dealings. Six, she had a weekend tryst. In early January 1947, Short began an affair with Robert Manley, who his friends called Red. His name may have been Manley, but he was hardly a gentleman. You see, Manley already had a wife, and was seeing Short on the side. The two wanted to get away from the city, and the chance of getting caught, so they went for a short visit to San Diego. When the trip was over, Manley drove Short back to LA. Once they arrived, Short told him to drop her off at the Biltmore Hotel. Short said she had a plan to meet her sister, who was visiting from Boston, at the hotel. Sadly, she'd meet her dark fate instead. 7. A mother and her toddler found Elizabeth Short's body. On the morning of January 15, 1947, Betty Bersinger was pushing her 3-year-old daughter Anne in a stroller down the sidewalk, heading to a shoe repair shop. She paused when she noticed what she thought was a mannequin lying in the grass. But as she looked closer, she discovered it was something much more alarming, a mutilated corpse. Bersinger grabbed Anne and ran to a nearby house, where she used the telephone to call the police. Authorities arrived on the scene just a few minutes later, kickstarting what would become a years-long investigation, that many people are still trying to solve. 8. There was no blood found at the scene. The naked body Bersinger discovered was in horrifying condition. In addition to being cut completely in half at the waist, and having her intestines removed, Short's mouth had been slashed from ear to ear, giving her face a ghastly, semi-smiling appearance known as a Glasgow smile. Her body had also been washed clean before it was left to be found. Despite the severe mutilation, there was no blood at the scene, leading police to conclude that the young woman had been murdered somewhere else, drained of blood, then cleaned before the killer dumped her body. 9. The FBI identified Short with fingerprints and a proto-fax machine. In order to identify the body, the Los Angeles Police Department pulled fingerprints off the corpse, which it then sent to the FBI through a device called a sound photo, a forerunner to the fax machine. About an hour later, the FBI got a hint and was able to identify the victim as 22-year-old Elizabeth Short. Short's fingerprints had been entered into the system twice before, once when she applied to work in the commissary of a U.S. Army base and once when she was arrested in Santa Barbara, California on September 23, 1943 for underage drinking. 10. Some linked the case to the lipstick murder. 1 month after Short's murder, another woman's body was discovered in Los Angeles, and the circumstances mimicked the Black Dahlia's case in a few ways. It all began with a stranger, in this case, a construction worker, stumbling upon the naked body of a dead woman in the grass. Jean French had dark hair like Short's, and her face was also badly beaten. But this time, there was an unusual message scrawled on her stomach in bright red lipstick, BD. Just below that were the letters Tex. People were quick to link the BD in the gruesome murder to the Black Dahlia, but the police were wary of officially connecting the two. Like Short, French's murder was never solved. 11. Many people confessed to the crime. The LAPD had to rule out many suspects in the Black Dahlia investigation, including several people who turned themselves in. Though some sources quote a lower number, the Los Angeles Times puts the tally of false confessions in Short's case at more than 500. The phony claims came from housewives, clergymen, soldiers, drunk ramblers, and, much later, pranksters who weren't even alive when Short's life was brutally taken. 12. No charges were ever filed. The FBI files on the Black Dahlia case indicate that many men were held for questioning, and some even took polygraph tests, But ultimately, no one was ever charged with Short's murder. Still, a few names stand out. 13. George Hodel is one of the most notorious suspects. One of those names is George Hodel, a physician who ran a venereal disease clinic in Los Angeles in the 1940s. According to The Guardian, Hodel was on a list of 6 primary suspects in the Black Dahlia case, and the LAPD even bugged his home during the investigation. But Hodel, who died in 1999, gained more recent notoriety when his son, Steve Hodel, accused him of killing Short in the 2003 best-selling book Black Dahlia Avenger: The True Story. Steve claims his father's handwriting matches strange letters the police received, supposedly from the killer. He also uncovered photos of a woman who resembles Short in his father's personal photo album, and believes Hodel's medical background would explain the precise, clinical cuts on the body. But some have discounted Steve's claims since he started linking his father to other infamous unsolved murders, including the Zodiac killings. 14. Others think it was a bellhop. Another name that's popular among Black Dahlia theorists is Leslie Dillon. He appears in the FBI case files, but gained renewed attention in 2017 when author Pugh Eatwell argued his guilt in her book Black Dahlia, Red Rose. Dillon was a bellhop, writer, and mortician's assistant who seemed to know a surprising amount of details about Short's murder when the LAPD hauled him in for questioning. In 2018, Buzz Williams, a retired officer with California's Long Beach Police Department and the son of Richard F. Williams, part of the LAPD's gangster squad, told Rolling Stone, quote, "My dad, Leslie Dillon, was the killer," and added that other cops suspected that Dillon was, at the very least, an accomplice. And you? What do you think about it? Who is the murderer? Will we ever know the truth or it's too late? Let us know in the comments. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and to click the bell to be notified of new videos. 13 chilling facts about the Winchester Mystery House. If you're a fan of the whimsical, the unexplainable, and the supernatural, well then visiting Winchester Mystery House should definitely be on your bucket list. Located in San Jose, California, this mansion is an architectural and historic landmark with an undeniably compelling story behind it. Here are 14 interesting facts about Winchester House. 1. It started out small. When the first parts of the structure were laid in the ground, the building that became the Winchester Mystery House wasn't planned to be a mansion. The original owners envisioned it as a farmhouse, but for reasons unknown, they couldn't complete construction and left it in its unfinished state. Little did they know what destiny had in store for it. And who knows? Perhaps there was a supernatural reason behind their departure as well. 2. It caught the eye of a wealthy widow. A Connecticut woman named Sarah Winchester is responsible for the mansion as we know it. For her, it was love at first sight. She'd moved to California after her husband, William Wirt Winchester, had passed. She was looking for a house to buy, and this unfinished farmhouse in Santa Clara Valley seemed perfect, and it was all for one reason in particular. 3. She was very rich. Sarah Winchester received a huge fortune from her late husband, who'd been the treasurer and sole successor to the Winchester Repeating Arms Company. She not only inherited $20 million, that's equal to $543 million in 2019, but also got 50% ownership of the hugely successful company when he passed. That meant she was making $1,000 per day. Nowadays, that would be equal to $26,000 per day. 4. It has stairways that lead to nowhere. What happens when you're an eccentric old lady with a lot of money? Whatever the heck you want. Who needed staircases which actually led to somewhere? Not Sarah Winchester. Whether she put them in because she wanted to confuse the spirits that haunted her, or just because it took her fancy, who knows? 5. They can't keep track. For many years people couldn't even agree on the exact number of rooms the house contained. The general consensus now is that there are 161 rooms, which include 40 bedrooms, 2 ballrooms, 1 unfinished, 6 kitchens, and 13 bathrooms. What an upgrade from the 8-room farmhouse it used to be. But guess what, this may not even be the final number of rooms. 6, it's ever expanding. There's a reason why it's called the Winchester Mystery House. After all, it keeps revealing cryptic new secrets. In 1975, people actually discovered a new room. It contained just 2 chairs and a phonograph speaker from the 1900s. Supposedly Sarah forgot all about having this room built and had more rooms constructed all around it, but it doesn't end there. Yet another new room revealed itself inside an attic area in 2016. This one had more stuff in it though, including paintings, an organ, a sewing machine, and a couch. What are the odds that yet another secret room is going to be discovered in the future? 7, it allows communication with spirits. When you're going to build over 100 rooms, you might as well build one to use for communicating with spirits, especially since they have such strict specifications on their area of residence. Winchester had a seance room, where she went every night to discuss building plans with the spirits. The room only had 1 entrance, but 3 exits. Why? To prevent anyone from exiting from the same door they entered in from, of course. 8, Sarah loved a certain number. It may be unlucky for some, but Sarah Winchester loved the number 13. The house had many 13-paned windows, 13 step stairways, 13 paneled ceilings, there were 13 coat hooks in the seance room, 13 drains in the sinks, 13 stars in a lead light window she designed, and 13 bathrooms. Most interestingly, the 13th bathroom also has 13 windows. She didn't stop at her house, she made it abundantly clear just how important 13 was to her in another way. 9, it transfixed her. Winchesters will also bore testimony to how important number 13 was to her. It had 13 sections, each of which she had signed 13 times. Now if that isn't pure dedication, I don't know what is. 10, it has closed doors. Basically, what that means is that you often can't exit through the exits or enter through what appear to be entrances. Many doors open to blank walls, and one on the 2nd floor opens to a steep drop into nothingness, well, technically the yard below, but no one wants to feel their foot hover over that type of drop. Even more spooky? It also has trapdoors and secret passages, and no one seems to know exactly how many. 11, it has inspired many spooky stories. Apart from the ghostly groundkeeper who many claim to have seen, a lot of visitors to the house have felt someone unseen tugging at their clothes. A maintenance worker also insisted he'd heard footsteps going up the 3rd floor, but when he tried to follow the sound, he couldn't find anyone. He ended up on the roof, all alone. 12, it confused the Mythbusters. All the people who have tried to prove the haunted house story false have left, feeling confused about what hit them. In fact, more visitors reported hearing voices and footsteps in the wake of their leaving than before. 13, maybe she didn't leave? Some visitors to the house sincerely believe they've seen Sarah Winchester's ghost hanging around the house, specifically close to her bedroom. One tour guide swears she saw her ghost look very annoyed when she saw a tour group led inside her bedroom. Can't blame her, who'd be okay with random strangers walking around their bedroom. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and to click the bell to be notified of new videos. "13 Spooky Facts About the Cecil Hotel." Sitting in the midst of the exciting streets of Los Angeles is a small, unassuming hotel that some people out there would probably like to avoid at all costs, the infamous Cecil Hotel. For practically all of its history, many things have gone seriously wrong inside this building. From spooky tragedies to unexplained mysteries, here are disturbing facts about the one and only Cecil Hotel. 1. It shouldn't have been anything special. For a hotel that would go on to be the site of such dark events, the Cecil's origins are surprisingly innocent. There's no record of any haunted burial sites that they built it on or anything like that. As boring as it sounds, 3 hoteliers simply invested some money and built the hotel in Los Angeles in 1924. It was an ordinary business venture, but since then, it's morphed into a monster. 2. It's in a rough neighborhood. For virtually all of the hotel's history, the neighborhood that surrounds it has been one of Los Angeles' most dangerous areas. Known as Skid Row, the neighborhood is a hotbed of questionable activity and danger. 3. The first tragedy struck. There are likely many dark things that occurred within the halls of the Cecil Hotel in the first years after it opened, but the first incident on record is utterly tragic. It was the mysterious passing of 52-year-old Percy Ormond Cook in January of 1927. That day, Cook had been in some kind of a dispute with his wife and child. When he did not succeed at reconciling with them, he shot himself in the head in his hotel room. He died from his injuries later that night, becoming the first on a long list of the Cecil's casualties. 4. Then came another tragedy. Following Cook's tragic death in 1927, things at the hotel were quiet for years, but they picked up quickly again. In November of 1931, a man using the pseudonym James Willis checked into the Cecil. He claimed to be from Chicago. In reality, he was an LA area local named W.K. Norton. A week later, he consumed a handful of poisonous capsules in his room, taking his own life. That's 2, and bad luck comes in 3s. 5. Make that 2 in 1 year. Less than a year after the Norton tragedy, the Cecil's dark forces struck again. A guest by the name of Benjamin Doddick shot himself in the head, and a horrified hotel maid stumbled upon his body soon after. Eerily, Doddick did not leave behind a note indicating why he took his own life, leaving many to wonder who the heck he was, and what really prompted his tragic decision. 6. Even the outside isn't safe. In an extremely creepy and horrifying incident, even by the Cecil Hotel's standards, a woman named Pauline Naughton jumped to her demise from the window in her room after a fight with her husband in 1962, but something unexpected happened. Her body landed on an innocent passerby, inadvertently ending his life along with her own. 7. It got a makeover. The hotel's management and staff have made serious efforts to renovate and rebrand the hotel in recent years. Since 2011, they have started using the name Stay on Main at times instead of the Cecil Hotel, particularly when advertising the youth hostel business. The new name is an intentional effort to distance the current hotel from its less than positive history. 8. Some people stayed there by accident. The hotel's youth hostel business has done a lot of good for the establishment, but there's only one problem with it. Since the hostel is marketed under a different name, many guests are shocked when they arrive and discover that they have unwittingly booked themselves to stay inside the famous haunted hotel. That's gotta be an awkward moment. 9. It had a brush with history. With so many of its own problems, you'd think that the Cecil Hotel would want to stay as far away as possible from other mysteries, right? Well, turns out not so much. In 1947, the case of Elizabeth Short became one of the most publicized tragedies in Hollywood history when her body turned up in a local park completely mutilated and mistreated. The media and public now know her as the Black Dahlia, and the authorities still have not solved her case to this day. According to widespread rumors, the last place that anyone saw Short was in the lobby of the Cecil Hotel. Onlookers reported seeing her have a drink. 10. Things could be even worse than we think. Although most reports are only aware of roughly 16 sudden passings to have taken place at the Cecil over the years, the actual number might be much, much higher, as there may be many incidents that the public never hears about. According to former manager Amy Price, at least 80 guests died while staying at the hotel just within the time she worked there. 11. It made a surprise appearance. Long before the Cecil Hotel became a widely recognized location of interest, the building actually found its way into a music video by the popular rock band U2. Way back in 1987, the group performed an entire live concert from the roof of the building next door, and a crew filmed the whole thing for a promotional video. As a result, the spooky hotel is now unwittingly seen in the background of the video for the song Where the Streets Have No Name, a video with almost 50 million views on YouTube. A high-profile case took place there. Even though the Cecil has been the source of mystery after mystery for 9 decades, awareness of it and interest in its bizarre history sparked to new levels following the 2013 case of Lisa Lam. Lam was a 21-year-old Canadian student who stayed at the Cecil while visiting Los Angeles. She went missing during her stay, until someone finally found her body 3 weeks later, inside the water tank on the hotel's rooftop. After 3 weeks as a missing person, the way in which authorities finally found the whereabouts of Lam's body was truly shocking and gruesome. Hotel guests had started complaining that their tap water didn't taste right and that it was coming out of the sinks and showers with a brownish hue. This led investigators to search the water tank, where they tragically discovered Lam's remains locked inside. Just days before she disappeared, Lam attended a live taping for a show, and the details of that day are utterly bizarre. Apparently, Lam acted erratically while there, to the point where the studio security team had to kick her out of the building. According to some reports, she was also originally sharing a room with other girls, until she began to refuse to let them in without giving her a password. This prompted the Cecil's staff to move her to a different room, where she'd be by herself. One fact that emerged from the Lam case is that the young lady suffered from bipolar disorder. Some feel that this mental illness may have played a role in the incident, as well as in her strange behavior outside the elevator leading up to the incident. The fact that she appeared to have under-medicated that day backs this theory up. Overall, the toxicology reports and forensic investigations left authorities with a lot more questions than answers, so this seems to be the only logical explanation that anyone has come up. 13. It may have a ghost problem. As if the Cecil's regular tragedies aren't enough, the hotel has also had run-ins with the supernatural. Within less than a year of Elisa Lam's passing, a child took a photo that inadvertently captured what appears to be a ghost-like figure hanging from the window of a 4th-floor room. Maybe that explains everything. The hotel has been haunted this entire time. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and to click the bell to be notified of new videos. Six hidden facts in Alice's Adventures in Wonderland only understood by adults. Lewis Carroll's tale, Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, is well known over the world, having a great influence on cinema, literature, and even psychology. This novel seems to be written for innocent children. However, heated discussions have been made by many people about whether the tale is written for children or for adults. And here are 6 hidden messages in Alice's Adventures in Wonderland that weren't meant for kids. 1. Just as Eve, Alice becomes a sinner. Alice starts her adventures in a quiet garden, an idyllic place, which reminds many people of the Garden of Eden. Instead of eating an apple, she falls into the rabbit hole and enters a world that causes incredible changes in her. Seemingly the theory is very logical. Children are innocent, but when Alice fell into the hole, ate the apple, she went into the world of puberty, and became a sinner. 2. Keys, doors, and caterpillars are Freudian symbols. With Freudian theories being popular around the world and the tale of Alice turning out to be full of gynecological symbols, the fans of Freud tried to discover the symbols in the keys, doors, and caterpillars that appears in the tale. But this theory is not very convincing despite its life. Because these symbols can be seen everywhere so long as people want to see. Alice's shrinking and growing indicates puberty. In the story, Alice would shrink or grow when she ate a cake or drank a certain mixture. While there were no actual reasons for the changes in her body in the text, people have some guesses about the hidden meaning behind that episode. A. Alice's body changes in a similar way to how it would change as a teenager during puberty. B. Astronomers link the character with the expanding universe. C. Alice may be just disoriented by hallucinogenic substances. 4. Walrus and Carpenter represent Buddha and Jesus. The twin brothers Tweedledee and Tweedledum read a poem to Alice. The poem tells the story about Walrus and Carpenter. It is interpreted that Walrus is Buddha or Elephant Ganesha as he is fat and happy, and Carpenter is the direct reference to the profession of the father of Jesus. 5. The Pig of Red Queen represents an English king. The tale is believed to be an allusion to the War of the Roses that was full of scheming, betrayal, and lots of chopped heads, just like in the tale. And the baby that changed into the pig was Richard III, who had a sigil with a white boar. Six. The poem about the White Rabbit reveals the love secret of the writer. The unusual connection between Lewis Carroll and Alice Little that was the prototype of the main character is studied by many researchers. In Chapter 12, there is a poem. Here is one of the most sensitive moments in the interpretation of the tale. It is guessed that when the girl was grown up, the writer was going to marry her. However, he had an argument with Mrs. Little for some reason. Then he never saw the members of the family since.
6 facts about the real-life hotel that inspired The Shining. Did The Shining scar you for life the first time you saw it? The classic horror movie has everything that could possibly creep you out and force you to run under your covers with no intention of ever resurfacing. Supernatural forces, the slow-burning insanity of main character Jack Torrance, and, most importantly, an isolated hotel in the mountains as the backdrop for the terror that ensues. If only you could visit the Overlook Hotel and feel the bone-chilling energy of the movie for yourself. Oh wait, you can. While the Overlook Hotel from the movie doesn't actually exist, it is based on the Stanley Hotel in Estes Park, Colorado, a 142-room colonial revival hotel nestled in the Rocky Mountains. Although parts of its interior have been renovated, the hotel still gives off a turn-of-the-century, ghostly energy that attracts tons of horror movie fans every year. Constructed in 1909 as a resort for the upper-class society of the Northeast United States, the hotel has retained its historic facade and even offers spirited rooms with high paranormal activity for lovers of ghosts and everything occult. 1. Stephen King was inspired to write the book because of a nightmare he had at the hotel. In September of 1974, Stephen King and his wife Tabby spent a night at the Stanley Hotel, room 217 to be exact, and were the only guests in the entire property. That night, King had a nightmare about his 3-year-old son running and screaming through the hotel's corridors being chased by a fire hose. According to King's website, he woke up sweating all over, within an inch of falling out of bed. By the time he got up and finished a cigarette, he had the entire premise of the book mapped out in his head. 2. The hotel was originally constructed for the region's curing properties against tuberculosis. In 1903, the inventor of the steam-powered car, Freeland Oscar Stanley, became afflicted with tuberculosis. The most recommended treatment was fresh, dry air and sunlight, so Stanley naturally headed to the Rocky Mountains with his wife Flora. As his health improved dramatically, he decided to turn Estes Park into a resort town for people looking to regain their health, and for the elite of the East Coast just looking for relaxation in the mountains. And just like that, the Stanley Hotel was born. 3. The hotel's founders can reportedly still be seen roaming around the property. Although hotel founder Freeland Oscar Stanley and his wife Flora died in 1940 and 1939, respectively, they never seem to have truly gone away, at least according to several hotel visitors. Mr. Stanley's ghost has reportedly been seen hovering behind employees at reception, and Mrs. Stanley can still be heard playing the piano in the hotel's music room. 4. If you decide to visit the Stanley, prepare for strange occurrences. Apart from sightings of the hotel's founders, Every single room in the hotel has experienced a spooky, sinister event. Reports include clothes being mysteriously unpacked, lights going on and off, and objects moving on their own. Guests have even reported hearing children's laughter or the sound of someone running down the halls on the famously spirited 4th floor. The Stanley Hotel employees assure guests that their ghosts are happy ghosts, but I'd prefer not to risk it. That's just me, though. 5. The hotel was not the filming site of The Shining, contrary to King's wishes. Although The Shining is a critically lauded film with a performance by Jack Nicholson that will go down in history, Stephen King was actually not happy with the way Stanley Kubrick directed the movie version of his book. Particularly, Kubrick's decision not to film at the Stanley Hotel, which inspired the story. Kubrick made the decision to film in Hertfordshire, England, with some scenes in Montana and Oregon, since the Stanley lacked sufficient snow and electricity. Still, King was not pleased with the final product of the film and made it clear in several interviews. 6. The Stanley Hotel built a hedge maze in honor of the film. With ghosts, moving objects, and a paranormal past, the Stanley Hotel was just missing one thing: the hedge maze from The Shining that appears in its famous chase scene. To celebrate 20 years of owning the Stanley Hotel, John W. Cullen decided to build the maze for his spirit hunting guests, or just visitors in the mood for an intense game of hide and seek. Either way, I'm both scared at the thought of it and truly intrigued.
Seven things you may not know about Bonnie and Clyde. 1. Clyde chopped off 2 of his toes in prison. While serving a 14-year sentence in Texas for robbery and automobile theft in January 1932, Clyde decided he could no longer endure the unforgiving work and brutal conditions at the notoriously tough East Ham prison farm. In the hopes of forcing a transfer to a less harsh facility, Clyde severed his left big toe and a portion of a second toe with an axe, although it is not known whether he or another prisoner wielded the sharp instrument. The self-mutilation, which permanently crippled his walking stride and prevented him from wearing shoes while driving, ultimately proved unnecessary as he was released on parole 6 days later. 2. Bank robberies were not their specialties. Although often depicted as Depression-era Robin Hoods who stole from rich and powerful financial institutions, Bonnie and Clyde staged far more robberies of mom-and-pop gas stations and grocery stores than bank heists. Oftentimes, their loot amounted to only $5 or $10. 3. Clyde's first arrest came from failing to return a rental car. The notorious criminal was first arrested in 1926 for automobile theft after failing to return a car he had rented in Dallas to visit an estranged high school girlfriend. The rental car agency dropped the charges, but the incident remained on Clyde's arrest record. Just 3 weeks later, he was arrested again alongside his older brother Ivan Buck Barrow for an even more farcical crime: possession of a truckload of stolen turkeys. 4. Bonnie died wearing a wedding ring, but it wasn't Clyde's. 6 days before turning 16, Bonnie married high school classmate Roy Thornton. The marriage disintegrated within months, and Bonnie never again saw her husband after he was imprisoned for robbery in 1929. Soon after, Bonnie met Clyde, and although the pair fell in love, she never divorced Thornton. On the day Bonnie and Clyde were killed in 1934, she was still wearing Thornton's wedding ring and had a tattoo on the inside of her right thigh with 2 interconnected hearts labeled Bonnie and Roy. 5. The Navy rejected Clyde. As a teenager, Clyde attempted to enlist in the U.S. Navy, but lingering effects from a serious boyhood illness, possibly malaria or yellow fever, resulted in his medical rejection. It was a hard blow for Clyde, who had already tattooed USN on his left arm. 6. Bonnie wasn't Clyde's only female accomplice. A new look at the Bonnie and Clyde's history suggests that Curie Barrow, the mother of Bonnie, truly was the woman behind Clyde Barrow. Participant accounts and news stories from the time, including those saved in scrapbooks of the Dallas County Sheriff, depict a mother who carefully managed her son's image, winning his release from prison with little lies, spinning news reporters and likely making payoffs that helped extend his long run of robbery and murder. 7. Bonnie and Clyde were buried separately. Although linked in life, Bonnie and Clyde were split in death. While the pair wished to be buried side by side, Bonnie's mother, who had disapproved of her relationship with Clyde, had her daughter buried in a separate Dallas cemetery. Clyde was buried next to his brother Marvin underneath a gravestone with his hand-picked epitaph, "Gone but not forgotten." Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe and to click the bell to be notified of new videos. Happy Valley Dream Survey, 8 facts about the strange dreams during the pandemic. 1. Very strange dreams. The world seemed to be having weird dreams in 2020 and 2021, National Geographic blamed the pandemic. The New York Times ran in-depth articles about how COVID-19 was causing a complete nationwide series of bad dreams. Since March 2020, shutdowns began to take hold across all over the world, the one uniting issue that everyone seemed to have suddenly in common: bad dreams. People stating they never had dreams quite like they were having. That they were puzzled and at the same time frightened by the way the dreams felt. Real. Vivid. Like they were actually happened or actually did. Some of the most visceral dreams anyone had in years. I had them too. Wouldn't it be interesting to document these weird terrors at night we all have been sharing? 2. A very weird poster. Have you been having strange dreams? A very weird poster began popping up around the Willamette Valley of Portland, Oregon in 2015. 7 years ago now at the time this video is made. The poster said was placed on random telephone poles and buildings. It stated, "The Willamette Valley Dream Survey is investigating a recent spike in bizarre, unexplainable dreams. If you have been experiencing any unusual dream activity, you can help by reporting a summary." The poster went on to say to call 971-258-1465 with a description of the dream. 3. Calling that number. From the April 2015 report, calling the number on the poster reveals that someone cared enough to set up a voicemail account just for the purpose. A woman's voice says,
"Thank you for calling the Willamette Valley Dream Survey. Please leave a detailed account of your dream after the tone. Transcripts or audio from your report may be duplicated in other media."
4. All we do is German. A Google search finds no other reference to the Willamette Valley Dream Survey. The number has in the past been affiliated with a summer camp operated by the German language immersion program Sophie Schule, which operates in Beaverton, Portland, and Corvallis. But a school official said the number was a Google phone account that the school no longer uses.
All we do is German.
School director Lynn Reese said, after viewing the Reddit post. "Yes, all strange. Strange that the phone number worked, that people were able to report their dreams, and that the collector was never known." 5. Foodle, the strange connection. The Bridge is a college newspaper in Portland. A May 2019 edition ran a story about Foodle phones that were popping up around the city. The Foodle website has this mantra: "At Foodle, we believe in the preservation of public telephone hardware as a means of providing access to the aggregate for everybody, and toward that goal we are privileged to provide free telephone calls, voicemail, and telephone-mediated services. All services, including telephony and human interaction, are free from any feudal telephone. Feudal has a Tumblr blog where it showcases the locations that its free phones are located. As a payphone documenter, this one is cool. You can find it in the description box. 6. The Bridge Article. Rory Elliott sought out this in May 2019, a little adventure to locate all the feudal phones in Portland. What they found, they reported at the time, were payphones acting as radio towers, broadcasting analog potential across the city. Elliott wrote this, with my emphasis added in bold red text. Each feudal phone sits in front of a house and is almost invisible to the unconcerned eye. The first feudal phone booth we approached was on 23rd and Taylor. We punched the buttons of this antiquated device with wonder, only to find that besides pressing one for free domestic calling, an entire world of bizarre and mystical interactivity lay beyond each key. Stunned, we explored all of the different ways we could travel the winding roads within the world of feudal. By dialing 3 for the directory, you are given the option to call the mayor, the druid of Sisyphus Gardens, still unknown, the apology line, a voicemail confessional that began in New York in the 80s, Willamette Valley Dream Survey, and more. I called the mayor and the druid, but didn't want to slow down to make an apology. Finally, I selected the option to call a payphone at random. The phone rang over and over, and I waited anxiously for someone to happen upon my phantom call. I stayed on this phone for over a half an hour, exploring all its secrets. Finally, I connected to Feudal's collective voicemail box, where anyone can record and listen to each other's messages. I left a voicemail about an upcoming show happening at my house, and sang a short song for someone to stumble upon. Resting the clunky handset between my ear and shoulder, I remembered the strangeness of telephone communication. The depth of its intimacy. How it brings us across towns and countries. How important it is to have, to cherish, and how necessary it is to daily life. There was no mention on NPR of the Oregon phones allowing you to press an option to reach the Willamette Valley Dream Survey. 7. Crazy dreams these days. The coronavirus breakout in 2019. In 2020 and 2021 weird flyers began to appear again. Around April 2020, a new flyer is being posted in potentially several states, at least if you believe those who post on Reddit, featuring a somewhat similar message to the strange Willamette Valley 2015 leaflets. This one is being labeled the Happy Valley Dream Survey, and now features an email of happyvalleydreamsurvey@gmail.com and a phone number of 725-333-9067. Happy Valley is a nickname for Utah County, one of the most populous areas of that state. It is also a nickname for the State College area of Pennsylvania. I personally called the phone number listed on the poster. You get an automated message stating, "Please leave a description of your dream after the tone." I did. And immediately afterwards, I received a text message thanking me for participating in the dream survey. Some report that they received calls a few days afterwards from the Happy Valley Dream Survey that hang up. Googling 725-333-9067 leaves you nowhere. You just find out the number is associated with a Las Vegas location. Googling Happy Valley Dream Survey at gmail.com will bring you to Reddit pages where the 2 main posts were deleted. 8. The 5th of September. Going back to the Reddit, users Aliens Did 9/11 and One Rigit were both highly active on the website trying to ascertain the information about the Happy Valley Dream Survey. Suddenly, both users vanished from Reddit in May. Not only their posts and initial information, but also their YouTube videos of their calls to the Happy Valley Dream Survey. And a weird connection to a new conspiracy about 5th of September. Let's explain. Reddit user Caitlin2468 tried to contact this dream survey. She got back a text response saying, "Sorry, my responses are limited, you must ask the right questions." To check what kind of questions would trigger a response, she asked a random set of questions, and surprisingly she got a question right and received a response. The response was, 9 Goa Hey 5 Jeet. 9 Goa translates to Creole Haitian as Septembre in French. And that translates to September in English, the 5th of September. A now famous group on Reddit, a group or some call Occult, believed an apocalyptic event should have occurred on September 5, 2020. The group believed that dreams should have helped avert a disaster, or at least help you find a safe place during the end of the world. The group stated, "This day will be exactly 24 hours. Usually it's a tiny bit less than 24 exact hours. Electric devices won't work, people will disappear." They claim to have seen dreams of a man in blue flames who told them about this thing. He talked in codes and told tales about a mysterious organization. But now we know this didn't happen. That's all for now. What do you think about this story? Real? Fake? Let us know in the comments below. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and to click the bell to be notified of new videos. 8 strange facts surrounding Whitney Houston's death. When we look at the facts and the occurrences surrounding Whitney Houston's death, coupled with the symbolic elements of the 2012 Grammy Awards, the entire event has the looks of an occult ritual, complete with a blood sacrifice, a celebration, and even a rebirth. Some of the things I will show you here were pre-planned, while others were possibly just odd coincidences. However, the overwhelming and almost palpable energy emanating from the 2012 Grammys definitely made some things align in a synchronistic fashion. Did Whitney fall out of the good graces of the music industry elite? Difficult to say, but Whitney appeared to have premonitions about her death. Some reports described her as manic and agitated, while others state that Whitney felt that her days were numbered. Let's look at the most significant events that happened during that fateful weekend. 1. Unseen forces? As in the cases of Michael Jackson, Amy Winehouse, Heath Ledger, Brittany Murphy and many others, bizarre events preceded and followed the death of Whitney Houston. After reviewing all of those accounts, one cannot help but wonder, was Whitney's death truly an accident? Or was it a deliberate sacrifice, planned by unseen forces? While most media reports drum into people's heads that Whitney Houston equals drugs, some sources reveal other details that might lead to other paths of thinking. Here's Roger Friedman's account of things that happened at the Beverly Hilton on February 11th. Whitney Houston's death made for a long day's journey into night at the Beverly Hilton. While the Clive Davis Grammy dinner had to proceed downstairs in the ballroom with 800 guests already filing in as the news was breaking, Whitney remained in state, so to speak, in her 4th floor suite. She was not removed until just moments before the party ended, a little after midnight. She'd been in the suite, discovered in her bathtub. But there were many people in the suite when this happened at 3:50 p.m., including her daughter Bobby Christina, her brother Gary, sister-in-law Pat Houston, and another player in this story, a nightlife friend who'd been guiding her around town the last few days as she was photographed in states of duress. Around 11 p.m. What you don't know is that around 11 p.m., paramedics were called back to the 4th floor. Security and police raced back to the 4th floor. A medical wheelchair with restraints was brought in through the back entrance to the hotel. Bobby Christina freaked out. Well, she'd been upstairs for hours with her mother's dead body in the next room. It was understandable. The paramedics thought they were going to have to take her to the hospital. But calm was restored. For 10 minutes, though, security cleared the entire lobby of the hotel while the concert was going on inside the ballroom. I was out there at that moment, and it was one of the strangest scenes ever. 3. A leak in the night before, at 2:30 a.m. A man on the 3rd floor, right underneath Houston's suite, suddenly experienced water cascading into his bathroom from above, at 2:30 a.m. It wasn't just a trickle. The man called security, then went upstairs to the 4th floor to see what was going on. He swears to me that it was Whitney's bathtub that was overflowing. He also says that a flat-screen television had been broken. The screen was smashed. My sources at the hotel say there was a leak but that it wasn't from Whitney's room. My source, this man, insists that he was told it was Whitney Houston's room. It does seem to have been part of her group of rooms. There are many mysteries here. None of them have been reported or solved by TMZ or one of the other muckraking tabloids. I know the man who had to pull Whitney out of the bathtub and attempt to give her CPR. He told me that she was already dead, there was nothing he could do. "4. The show must go on." The fact that her body was there for hours, while a pre-Grammy party was happening just below is a little off-putting. Why wasn't it simply cancelled? Isn't the presence of the dead body of a legendary singer in the same exact location as the party reason enough to cancel it? Was there some type of twisted thrill of partying right below Houston's body? "5. The Mystery Dutch Man." In another article, Roger Friedman noted the presence of a strange Hollywood insider lurking around Whitney Houston that was also around Michael Jackson during his difficult periods. Who is that guy? Whitney Houston's mystery friend was also Michael Jackson's pal. Here's the one person in the Whitney Houston story whose name you have not heard, and who has remained a mystery, a Dutch man from Amsterdam who goes by the name of Raffles van Exel. He is also known, in court records, as Raffles Dawson and Raffles Benson. He was on the 4th floor of the Beverly Hilton Hotel in one of Houston's suites when she died. He appeared downstairs in the lobby shortly thereafter, wearing aviator sunglasses, sobbing. Despite the shock of Whitney's death, Raffles still made it downstairs to Clive Davis's party. He was dressed in formal wear, had Whitney's tickets in his hand, and intended to sit at her table. Just inside the ballroom he was comforted by celebrities to whom he related his story. "I found Whitney." Gayle King hugged him. Quincy Jones listened patiently to his story. A security guard told me later, "Well, he was up there. He was also hanging around with Houston all week prior to her death." On Tuesday, when she emerged from a nightclub, looking disheveled, Raffles appears in a photograph on TMZ like a deer in headlights. He is standing right behind her in a powder blue suit. On Twitter, he wrote, "Stop reading the stupid blogs. Whitney had a great time, she looked amazing. Nothing was wrong, it was just damn hot in that club." But who is Raffles van Exel? He's one of Hollywood's mysteries. Was this man instrumental in Whitney's sacrifice? 6. What was in Whitney's secret note to Brandy? Shortly before her death, Whitney was spotted handing singer Brandy a message whose contents remained a mystery. Singer Brandy is not telling anyone what it says. On February 9 in Los Angeles, Houston approached the younger singer, as she and fellow singer Monica and mentor Clive Davis were conducting an interview with E! A post on RyanSeacrest.com says Houston crashed the interview. Then goes on to say, Whitney seemed a bit manic, as she told Monica about swimming 2 hours a day. and conspicuously handed a note to Brandy before hugging Davis. As you will see, her hair seems to be wet.
I'm just saying love it because I can't. I love it. It's my dad. It's my dad. I'll see you later. I'll see you later. Mom, come see her. Come say hi to Come say hi to your godfather. Come say hi to your goddad.
Brandy said, "I'm going to just not say what it was and just keep it to myself for my own personal reasons." 7. The number 11. When dealing with occult rituals, numerology takes on a primordial importance. In the case of Whitney Houston, the number 11 is definitely a factor. In elite occult circles, the number 11 is a master number, it cannot be reduced, and, because it exceeds the number 10, the number of perfection, by 1, it is usually associated with bad foreboding and black magic. Kabbalists associate the number 11 with transgression of the law, rebellion, war, sin, sorcery and martyrdom. For this reason, the occult elite often associates mega rituals involving sacrifice with the number 11. What was the massive mega ritual of the modern times? At the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month, Veterans Day, aka Remembrance Day. Going further than the date of her death, another link associates Whitney and her death with Lady Gaga and previous Grammy Awards. As some know, Lady Gaga had close ties with fashion designer Alexander McQueen, who was no stranger to occult and mind control symbolism in his work. McQueen died on February 11, 2010. During the 2011 Grammy Awards, Gaga stated about her song Born This Way, "I need to thank Whitney Houston. I wanted to thank Whitney, because when I wrote Born This Way, I imagined she was singing it, because I wasn't secure enough in myself to imagine I was a superstar. So, Whitney, I imagined you were singing Born This Way when I wrote it." Born This Way was released on February 11, 2011. Exactly 1 year later, Whitney Houston dies on February 11, 2012. Did Gaga, or her handlers, know something that the rest of us didn't? Artists usually have their award ceremony wardrobes selected well in advance. Apparently, death was on their mind. Another little fact, Whitney's room number was 434, which in Kabbalistic numerology equals 11, 4 plus 3 plus 4. 8. Statements from industry veterans. Who is better placed than artists who have worked in the music industry for years to provide insightful takes on the death of Whitney Houston? They obviously do not hold the ultimate truth and they might just be trying to make sense of things like the rest of us, but they have first-hand experience when it comes to the workings of the music industry. During an interview on Good Morning America, industry giant Celine Dion bluntly blamed the bad influence of show business for Whitney's death. She said to Vancouver Sun, "It's just really unfortunate that drugs, bad people or bad influence took over. It took over her dreams. It took over her love and motherhood. When you think about Elvis Presley and Marilyn Monroe and Michael Jackson and Amy Winehouse, to get into drugs like that, for whatever reason. Is it because of the stress and bad influence? What happens when you have everything? What happens when you have love, support, the family, motherhood? You have responsibilities of a mother and then something happens and it destroys everything. That's why I don't do parties and I don't hang out. That's why I'm not part of show business. We have to be afraid. I've always said you have to have fun and do music and you can never be part of show business because you don't know what it's going to get yourself into. You have to do your work and get out of there." Another legendary diva, Chaka Khan, was even more direct when explaining the true cause of Whitney's death. During an interview with Piers Morgan, she stated to Ian Line, "I think we all, as artists, because we're highly sensitive people, and this machine around us, this so-called music industry, is such a demonic thing. It sacrifices people's lives and their essences at the drop of a dime. I had a manager once say to me, 'You know you're worth more money dead than alive.'" And added, "I mean, I've cried for her, a lot over the years, so many times. In a way I've mourned her, because I felt something was gonna happen because she was so close to the wire." Was Chaka Khan exaggerating when using the terms demonic and sacrifice when describing the music industry? Judging by the symbolism found at the Grammy Awards, she was probably right on the dot. And you? What do you think about the death of Whitney Houston? Accident? Drugs? Murder? Let us know in the comments below. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and to click the bell to be notified of new videos. Ten facts about the numbers station mystery. 1. The numbers stations are shortwave radio stations that broadcasts a voice that reads out sequences of numbers, words or letters, sometimes using a phonetic alphabet. The phenomenon has lasted for many years and no one has yet managed to understand their function or where they come from.
Iteration 72945.
Okay, what's that? Oh, no.
What?
Iteration.
2. These particular radio stations have existed for several years, there are even traces of them since the First World War, but in the early 1990s the phenomenon grew dramatically, becoming a real international case and also a sort of urban legend. 3. Three types of number station can be identified. Phone stations, where the numbers are pronounced by a voice or by a speech synthesizer. Stations that broadcast in Morse code. Stations that broadcast apparent noise, more often called noise stations. 4. The transmitted voices are often produced by a speech synthesizer and use a wide variety of languages, particularly in the USA they are often heard in Spanish, while in Europe the transmissions are generally in English, German or French or even in Slavic languages. They are also mostly female, more rarely male or infantile. 5. Enthusiasts have sometimes given nicknames to numbers stations, often reflecting some of the station's distinctive elements. For example, Lincolnshire Poacher, one of the better-known stations of its type, thought to be operated by the Sis, played the first two lines of the popular song of the same name before each set of numbers. Magnetic Fields plays French electronic music by Jean-Michel Jarre before and after each set of numbers. The Atención station begins its broadcast with the Spanish word, Atención. 6. A typical message has an average duration of 45 minutes and is generally made up of blocks of numbers which are read with a regular interval of a few seconds between one and the other. The start of each transmission is always declared with one or more words, so an example could be, attention. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 4, 5, 6, 8, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, and so on. The opening word is usually repeated several times before the transmission begins, presumably to make sure whoever is listening is really listening, or to make sure they understand certain things. In some cases, in addition to the usual word, a series of electronic beeps or numbers repeated several times, can be heard before the actual message begins. According to the experts, these first blocks of numbers and words would indicate the total of blocks of code contained in the subsequent message, such as, count 204, count 204, octung. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, and so on. 7. The case Atención. Due to the shortwave transmission method, it is very difficult to understand where the station's signal comes from. However, thanks to transmission errors or radio wave propagation, it has been possible to have some clues. For example, thanks to an alleged transmission error in the 90s, it was possible to understand that the station renamed Atención was located in Cuba, given that for a short period of time the station Radio Habana Cuba was broadcast on the frequencies of this number's station. In 2000, the USA officially recognized the Cuban origin of the Atención station, which was later legally prosecuted by the US justice system. 8. To conclude, there is one last feature that should not be underestimated. The broadcasts always start at very specific times, such as 4 p.m. It has almost never happened that they started at 4:13 p.m. or similar times. According to many, this would indicate the fact that these messages are addressed to someone who has some sort of date. 9. All the governments, suspected of being involved with the numbers stations, have always denied having made use of these transmission methods. In fact, if they were actually government transmissions, a doubt would arise natural, because various governments from all over the world would have all made use of the same secret transmission method. This would logically make no sense. Considering this fact, we would be back to square one. But then what are they for? And what are these mysterious radio stations? 10. The technology used by these stations to transmit the number sequences has always been fairly obvious: common shortwave transmitters with power from 10 to 100 kilowatts. The transmitters usually work in variable frequency amplitude modulation, with push-pull amplification in Class B. Transmission technology could change in the future with the introduction of the word digital radio system, which allows data to be transmitted in the form of text in addition to broadcasting, at a speed more than sufficient for the needs of a numbers station. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and to click the bell to be notified of new videos. Ten facts about famed paranormal investigators Ed and Lorraine Warren. When it comes to investigations of the paranormal kind, no two ghost hunters loom larger than Ed and Lorraine Warren. Over the course of 50 years, Ed, a demonologist, and Lorraine, a trance medium, looked into thousands of cases around the globe, and claimed to have encountered phenomena so scary that their exploits were often turned into films, including the Amityville Horror, the Conjuring movies, and The Haunting in Connecticut. But even if you're familiar with their most famous cases, there's probably still a lot you don't know about the Warrens. One, Ed Warren grew up in a haunted house. When Ed was 5, he claimed he saw an apparition, a dot of light that grew until it became his family's landlady, who had died the year before. In The Demonologist, The Extraordinary Career of Ed and Lorraine Warren, Ed recalled that she was semi-transparent, wearing what looked like some sort of shroud, then she vanished. Soon after, Ed was having dreams of dead relatives he'd never met, including an aunt who would send him messages about his future, telling him that he would help many priests but never become a priest himself. Semi-transparent, wearing what looked like some sort of shroud, then she vanished. He said in The Demonologist. 2. Lorraine Warren discovered her abilities when she was a child. Like Ed, Lorraine began having unusual experiences when she was young too, but she just assumed everyone had those same abilities. That all changed when she was 12. As she recalled in The Demonologist, it was Arbor Day at her all-girls private school, and her classmates had just planted a sapling. Just as soon as they put the sapling in the ground, I saw it as a fully grown tree, filled with leaves blowing in the wind, she said. When a nun asked her why she was staring at the sky, Lorraine responded, "I told her I was just looking up into the tree. Are you seeing the future?" She asked me, just as sternly. "Yes," I admitted, "I guess I am." 3. Ed and Lorraine Warren began dating as teenagers. Ed and Lorraine both lived in Connecticut and met in 1944, when they were both just 16 years old. Ed worked as an usher at a movie theater that Lorraine and her mother frequented. They began dating, and soon after, Ed went off to fight World War II. 4. Ed and Lorraine Warren got married in 1945, thanks to a sunken ship. In 1945, when Ed was 17 years old, he enlisted in the Navy. He had only been deployed for a total of 4 months when he was sent back home on a 30-day survivor's leave after his ship went down in the North Atlantic Sea. It was during that short break that Ed and Lorraine got married, then he returned to war. The couple later had a daughter named Judy. 5. The Warrens thought they'd make their livings as artists. After the war, the Warrens had to figure out how to make a living. Each of us had skills as landscape artists, and we each harbored a desire to paint, Lorraine said. Ed had taken art classes, so, she said, we began our marriage under the assumption that we were going to be artists. Rather than painting landscapes, the Warrens decided on a more unusual subject on which to focus, haunted houses, which Ed found in the newspaper. They'd go to the houses, sketch them, then knock on the door and offer the sketch for information about the haunting, Lorraine said. If the story was compelling enough, they'd actually paint the house and sell that artwork later. They spent about 5 years going around the United States, painting and investigating haunted houses. 6. Lorraine Warren was initially a skeptic. Despite her early experiences with clairvoyance, Lorraine didn't believe in ghosts until later in life, after she and Ed began visiting and painting haunted houses. In the beginning, I was more than a bit wary of the people with whom we spoke, she said in The Demonologist. I thought they were kind of suffering from overactive imaginations or were just making things up to get attention. But when she noticed the similarities between the experiences, including from people who had never met, and who were from opposite sides of the country, she became a believer. 7. Ed and Lorraine Warren founded the New England Society for Psychic Research in 1952. The Warrens founded the New England Society for Psychic Research to document their cases, and they also created the Occult Museum, a space in their Monroe, Connecticut, home, which adjoined Ed's office, to house haunted objects and the files and tapes from their investigations. Today, the NESPR is run by the Warrens' daughter Judy and son-in-law, Tony Spira, and its website keeps a log of some of the cases the Warrens investigated, including that of an alleged werewolf and the infamous possessed doll, Annabelle. 8. Lorraine Warren had her abilities tested. As the Warrens began taking on bigger and bigger cases, skepticism about the couple grew. To quiet critics, Lorraine agreed to be tested by Dr. Thelma Moss, an actress turned psychologist and parapsychologist, a researcher with an interest in the occult, working in a UCLA lab studying things like Kirlian photography. She found that Lorraine's clairvoyance was far above average, according to the demonologist. 9. Ed and Lorraine Warren never charged money for their investigations. Instead, they made a living from giving lectures at colleges, and by licensing the rights to their stories for film, TV, and book projects. 10. Ed and Lorraine Warren saw their main roles as educators. The Warrens began giving lectures because, according to the demonologist, there was a growing interest in the occult in the late 1960s, and many of the people they saw affected by dark phenomena were college students. They hoped that, through their lectures, they might discourage people from exploring the occult in the first place. 11 Creepy items in the Warrens' Occult Museum. In the Conjuring movies, the Warrens come across some rather creepy items and artifacts that were actually based on real things. In addition to investigating hauntings, the Warrens also kept their own occult museum, with the collection containing some of the most disturbing and creepy objects of all time. The terrifying but intriguing Warren Occult Museum is full of creepy, cursed, and haunted objects that have been the basis for several movies. Let's find out the creepiest items. 1. Haunted piano. The Warren Occult Museum houses a haunted piano that Ed Warren would hear playing on its own, but immediately stopped playing whenever he would go to the room to see what was happening. The Warrens allegedly got the piano from a priest after his death. The piano makes a brief appearance in the Conjuring universe in Annabelle Comes Home when the babysitter goes into the room at the Warrens' house and plays a few keys. 2. The Samurai Suit. The cursed samurai suit has appeared in several movies in the Conjuring universe but was prominently displayed in Annabelle Comes Home when the teens are checking out the Warrens' room of haunted artifacts. The two young girls are mesmerized by the armor, and as they continue to stare at it they begin to hear distant screams of the victims of the samurai who wore the armor. 3. Demon masks. Another general item said to be in the Warren Occult Museum is demon masks. The museum has various demon masks that don't seem to have specific lore around them. 4. A brick from Borley Rectory. The Warrens Occult Museum holds some of the most haunted and cursed objects in the world, many of which were commandeered by the Warrens from their travels to haunted locations from across the globe. One object of particular significance is a brick from the Borley Rectory, a building that is said to be the most haunted building in the United Kingdom. 5. Children's tombstones. Aside from the usual cursed and haunted objects in the museum, the Warrens also collected some objects that were used in satanic rituals that they investigated and combated during their careers as paranormal experts. One of the more unnerving of these artifacts are the tombstones of children that were allegedly used in these dark occult rituals by those who dabble into the darker side of the paranormal. 6. The Perron family music box. The music box pops up on the room. The Perrons featured in The Conjuring as the investigators tried to help them rid their home of a demon called Bathsheba Sherman, a witch and Satanist, who hung herself on a tree on the estate in the 19th century. In the real-life case, the Warrens were unable to help. In the film they were successful. 7. The Pearls of Death. The Pearls of Death is a cursed necklace that is said to strangle those who wear them, with their former owner complaining of being choked while wearing them. 8. The Toy Monkey. This toy monkey actually appeared in the Conjuring universe, with the toy getting its biggest appearance to date in the spin-off movie Annabelle Comes Home. While there is already something unnerving about this particular toy monkey, its alleged power is very scary. It is said that the monkey is possessed by a demon and enjoys stalking its victims before eventually murdering them. 9. A satanic idol. The idol was found by a young hunter, who encountered an old man in black robes soon after seeing it. The hunter was put into contact with the Warrens and the idol has been in the Occult Museum ever since. 10. A shadow doll. While Annabelle is said to have attacked and scratched people, the shadow doll is said to have the terrifying power of entering someone's dreams and killing them while they're sleeping. 11. The real Annabelle. One of the most famous haunted dolls of all time, Annabelle is imprisoned in a holy box at the Warrens Museum, keeping the evil doll from wreaking havoc. While the real doll, a Raggedy Ann doll, doesn't look as terrifying as the doll from the movie, it still has an unnerving presence about it. Admittedly, the doll did not do everything it was shown to do in the movies. But the fact that the Warrens thought it prudent to keep the doll locked away in a holy box shows just how much they feared whatever's lying inside it. That's all for now. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and to click the bell to be notified of new videos. 11 Facts about Lycanthropes. 1. Lycanthropes are human beings who can fully or partially transform into animals. 2. 3 types of werewolves can be distinguished. True werewolves, for whom lycanthropy is a genetic trait. Infected werewolves, their lycanthropy appears when they are injured by a real lycanthrope. Artificial werewolves, they can control their lycanthropy through magical items. 3. Lycans usually have two forms, that of the human and the hybrid. The hybrid form possesses features of the animal it resembles and also possesses human features. The hybrid form is the size of the animal, and not the human. Some werewolves present a third form, which corresponds only to that of the animal, without any human traits. 4. Any creature that has been injured by a lycanthrope, but not killed, can contract its lycanthropy. The probability that this lycanthropy passes to the victim is greater the stronger the true lycanthrope is. 5. To remove the curse, it is necessary to cast the appropriate spell during a full moon night, although this system is not infallible. This affliction can only be removed from infected werewolves. 6. True werewolves have complete control over their bodies, can change forms at will, and are not altered by the phases of the moon or darkness. These situations only affect infected werewolves. These are human during the day and usually change shape at nightfall, and, more so, with the full moon. 7. An infected werewolf who takes hybrid form sees his strength increase as he loses control of his actions. The desires to kill and hunt become very strong. Upon returning to human form, they often have bitter memories of the acts performed. 8. In hybrid or animal form, werewolves are only hurt by silver or magical weapons, as other items cause wounds that heal very quickly. (9) The group of artificial lycanthropes is much more complex. Only some members of certain guilds can be honored with the magical item that caused their lycanthropy. When they touch the item, they transform into a werewolf, and can revert to human form whenever they want as long as they are carrying the item. 10. Werewolf. Werewolves are lycanthropes that have both human and wolf traits. They are greatly feared for their aggressiveness and evil nature. 11. A werewolf has three forms of lycanthropy: the human, the hybrid between human and wolf, and the wolf. In his humanoid form, he is totally indistinguishable from the rest of humans. The size, intelligence and other characteristics of him are the same as those of any man. In his hybrid form, he has characteristics of both a man and a wolf. It has a fur-covered body, shorter legs, although its overall size is usually about 12 inches larger than its human form, a wolf's head, human's hands, and a short tail. It can walk on all four legs or upright. The wolf form is completely identical to that of any large common wolf, except for its eyes, which glow in the dark. Werewolves, in their hybrid form, live in packs of about 6 or 7 members. They are made up of a male, a female and puppies. The cubs remain in the pack until they are 10 years old, the age at which a werewolf is considered an adult. If the werewolf mates with a human woman, the baby is fully human. Werewolves, in their human form, do not usually live in houses as they are not very sociable beings. They do so in well-protected caves and burrows, where they keep their pups away from humans. Werewolves, in their animal form, are often nomadic, constantly prowling in packs looking for humans and other victims. Being very wild and aggressive, they are enemies of any being that opposes them, even other lycanthropes such as werebears. The werewolf's tactic is to attack by surprise, approaching carefully and taking advantage of its sharp fangs to bite and tear at its victims. A werewolf can only be hurt by magical or silver weapons. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and to click the bell to be notified of new videos.
If a voice calls to you in the dark, you might not want to know what's waiting on the other side. They live among us, they walk unseen, and sometimes, they watch. Skinwalkers aren't campfire tales or bedtime monsters. They're real in Navajo legends, dark witches, shapeshifters, beings born of blood and forbidden rites. To become one, A man must commit the unthinkable, a terrible sacrifice within the family. Welcome to Easy Peasy Facts, where truth blurs with myth, magic, and the unknown, where the real world whispers and something darker answers. These are the 7 facts you need to know if you ever hope to survive an encounter with a Skinwalker. 1. Never answer the voice.
Hey, come here.
It starts small. A cry in the woods. A familiar voice calling your name. Your mother.
My baby.
But those who answered were never seen again. The Skinwalker imitates the voices of those you love. It bends them, twists them, lures you out, and takes you. 2. Fire is your only sanctuary. In the dark, there's one thing they truly fear: fire. It cleanses, it purifies, it burns through their spell work. If you feel watched, if the trees whisper your name, light a flame. Even the smallest one might keep you safe. 3. Don't look it in the eyes. They wear the forms of wolves, owls, coyotes, but their eyes are wrong, human, too human. And if you lock eyes with one, you might lose yourself, you might not come back. Some say a single glance is enough for them to take control of your thoughts, your voice, your skin. 4. Silence is your shield. Never speak their name, never mock them, never invite the story in. Among the Navajo, to even mention a Skinwalker aloud is to risk being heard, and once they hear you, they come. 5. Trust no one. They can mimic anyone. Your mother's smile, your lover's laugh, even your own reflection. If something feels off, don't stay to find out why. 6. Silver can hurt them, but it's not enough. A silver blade might slow them. A blessed coin might buy you time. But what matters most is the will to fight when it counts. 7. And above all, stay away from Skinwalker Ranch. In the deserts of Utah, there is a place where the veil grows thin, where time slips, shadows walk, and something is always watching. It's not just a legend, it's a warning. They're not just monsters, they're what we could become if we cross the line. So next time you hear a voice in the dark, don't answer. And whatever you do, don't look back. Skinwalkers are more than just stories. They're warnings, echoes of something we still don't fully understand. If you want to keep exploring the shadows where fact and folklore collide, subscribe to Easy Peasy Facts and step deeper into the unknown. Because sometimes, knowing the truth is the only way to survive it.
10 unsettling facts about the Amityville horror. There's much controversy regarding what exactly happened in the house in Amityville, New York, that day on November 13, 1974. What's for certain is that, in that house, Ronald DeFeo Jr. murdered his family, his parents, 2 brothers, and 2 sisters. More than a year after the tragedy, the Lutz's family bought the house, and later claimed it was inhabited by spirits. 1. The murders. The story goes that on November 13, 1974, Ronald DeFeo Jr., using a Marlin rifle, methodically walked into each bedroom in his house, killing everyone as he went. His parents, 2 brothers, and 2 sisters were all found in the exact same position, laying on their stomachs in their beds. DeFeo claimed that voices told him to kill his family, though he changed his story many times over. He was serving 6 consecutive life sentences. He died on March 12, 2021. 2. Spin-offs. There are a total of 21 Amityville horror-related movies. The films span from 1979 up to the present day. Of the films, most were straight-to-video releases, with only 4 films reaching wide release in theaters: The Amityville Horror, 1979, Amityville 2, The Possession, Amityville 3D, and The Amityville Horror, 2005. 3. 3:15 a.m. The DeFeo family killings took place at 3:15 a.m., and this motif lived on with George Lutz. Reportedly, when he was living in the house he would wake up at 3:15 every morning. Inexplicably, multiple members of the crew for the Amityville horror remake allegedly began waking up at 3:15 a.m. as well, including Ryan Reynolds, Melissa George, and other crew members. 4. Evil Eyes. The most notable thing about the Amityville horror house has to be the so-called evil eyes of its windows. These windows would prove to be so iconic, in fact, that subsequent owners of the home had to replace them with regular rectangle-shaped windows in an attempt to discourage tourists and fans from hanging around. 5. Furniture. The Lutzes purchased the house for $80,000, which was a steal at the time. For an additional $400 they were able to buy all the furniture left in the house. It was all allegedly left in the exact same position it was in during the murders. 6. Pigeonholed. For years after filming the original The Amityville Horror, James Brolin couldn't find a job. Due to the cruelty of his character in the film, no one wanted to book him. After the film became a blockbuster success, I'm sure it was a shock to all that Brolin would be receiving $17 million. 7. Not the actual house. The 1979 The Amityville Horror didn't use the real house for any of the film's shots. The city of Amityville refused to allow the film crew to shoot any scenes in the city, as they hoped to distance themselves from any negative publicity the film might create. Of course, the town of Amityville is now synonymous with the famous haunted house, so things didn't exactly work out the way they wanted. 8. Ocean Avenue. The original home was located at 112 Ocean Avenue, but the owner had the official address changed to discourage tourists and fans from disrupting their privacy. They changed the home address to 108 Ocean Avenue, but of course, any eagle-eyed fans would know that distinctive house anywhere. 9. Lawsuits. George and Kathy Lutz filed a lawsuit against many key players in the media furor related to the Amityville haunting, suing for invasion of privacy and misappropriation of name for trade purposes and negligent infliction of mental distress. The lawsuit would eventually be dismissed. 10. Paranormal investigation. The famous paranormal investigators Ed and Lorraine Warren also believed the Lutzes. Ed called the house diabolically infested. The Warrens were unequivocally certain that something evil was lurking in that house. Conversely, Stephen Kaplan, another paranormal investigator, claims the haunting was indeed a hoax orchestrated by the Lutz family. Kaplan began to have suspicions about the Lutz story after George Lutz called him on the phone and asked him to investigate, but then cancelled shortly after Kaplan warned him that the public would find out if the Lutzes were trying to sell a hoax. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and to click the bell to be notified of new videos. 12 startling facts about the Bermuda Triangle. 1. Triangle? What triangle? Okay, first things first. There's nothing official about the Bermuda Triangle. It's not a registered territory, and it's not even shown on maps. But it's understood that it stretches from Miami, Florida to the island of Bermuda, and to San Juan in Puerto Rico. 2. A mystery since the 50s. The earliest instances of unusual disappearances in the area were reported in 1950, and in the almost 7 decades since, speculation has been rife about the actual cause of a number of weird happenings. 3. It's true that there have been a lot of strange disappearances. Only between 1945 and 1965, sources states that up to 5 planes crashed in the area, and that 10 ships sank or disappeared from 1800 to 1963. 4. Blink and you'll miss it. The area is known for extremely violent and unexpected storms, which build up and dissipate quickly. 5. Don't rely on your compass. The Bermuda Triangle is one of only 2 places on Earth where a compass points to true north rather than magnetic north. If this compass variation or error is not compensated for, ships and planes could find themselves far off course. 6. It's one of the deepest spots on Earth. In fact, the underwater topography of the area could be a factor in the history of disappearances. It goes from a gently sloping continental shelf to an extremely deep drop-off. Some of the deepest trenches in the world are found in the area of the Bermuda Triangle. Ships or planes that sink into these deep trenches will probably never be found. 7. Can you smell gas? Scientists have discovered large concentrations of methane gas, due to decomposing sea organisms, trapped in the ocean floor. The methane accumulates as super-concentrated methane ice, and if a pocket ruptures, the gas surges up and erupts on the surface without warning. If a ship is in the area of the blowout, the water beneath it would suddenly become much less dense. It could sink and sediment could quickly cover it as it settles onto the sea floor. 8. It plays havoc with instruments on deck. Magnetic vortices, hot and cold currents, could create the electromagnetic gymnastics affecting instruments and vehicles. Others mention an electronic fog that could block both the visibility and the instruments. 9. Don't look up. The area has one of the highest incidences of UFO sightings, and alien abductions have been a popular explanation for the disappearances. But abductions aren't the only theory. Some believe it's a portal to other planets. 10. Welcome to the Atlantis Ocean. Many theories say that the triangle is home to the lost city of Atlantis. According to legend and speculation, the city of Atlantis relied on the power of special energy crystals that were extremely powerful. The theory is that these energy crystals are in an altered state of some kind and send out rays of energy that confuse navigation. 11. But it could all come down to a fairly simple fact. The area is one of the most highly trafficked for amateur pilots and sailors, and one of the most heavily traveled shipping lanes in the world. Statistically, more traffic leads to more accidents and disappearances. Sounds logical, right? 12. Electronic fog. One of the explanation of Bermuda Triangle disappearances is based on electronic fog. Something similar to what Canadian scientist John Hutchison could demonstrate in his own lab. It is something like a grayish cloud of electromagnetic fields that get formed above the ocean. Such electronic fog seems to appear from nowhere and completely engulfs ships and aircrafts. All the electronic systems and instruments start malfunctioning. Spatial disorientation starts. And finally the ship and the aircraft can even disappear without a trace. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and to click the bell to be notified of new videos. 9 facts about the world's eeriest ghost towns. Every ghost town has a story. Maybe people left because of an economic collapse. Perhaps they perished in a natural disaster. Something even more sinister may have happened. We're exploring the strange, tragic, and sometimes terrifying stories behind the 10 world's eeriest ghost towns. 1. Chernobyl, catastrophic meltdown. The Chernobyl nuclear disaster is one of the most famous man-made disasters in history, and one of the casualties was the town of Pripyat, Ukraine. The once thriving town of 49,000 residents was evacuated within 36 hours of the disaster and is now home to wild animals, visited only by the odd urban explorer or former resident. Over 30 years later, hundreds of letters sit unmailed in the post office, toys and books are scattered in classrooms, the brand new amusement park sits abandoned, and nature has taken over the remaining buildings. 2. João Verde, Brazil, they all vanished. How do 600 people just vanish from a village without a trace and without explanation? This is the question that authorities in the Brazilian town of João Verde are still trying to answer since all of the inhabitants vanished in 1932. Adding to the mystery is that there are no signs of anything unusual occurring. All of the buildings were left intact, none of the people ever turned up living anywhere else. The political climate in Brazil was pretty tumultuous back then, so it's possible that the town evacuated to avoid a potential conflict with guerrillas, but since there's no evidence that anyone ever passed through there again after the entire town disappeared, we'll likely never know. 3. Dudleytown, Connecticut. A Curse Upon Your Heads. The town of Dudleytown in Connecticut was supposedly founded by descendants of Edmund Dudley, a British nobleman who was executed for treason in the time of Henry VII. Upon his execution, the family was supposedly cursed, and that curse followed them all the way to the Dudley town. Before long, weird things started happening in the town, including reports of residents seeing demons. Not surprisingly, people started moving on to greener pastures, leaving only John Brophy and his family. Within a few months his wife died, his children walked into the woods and disappeared, and then Brophy's house caught fire and he disappeared. Today, the land is owned by a group known as the Dark Forest Association, and nobody's allowed to set foot in the town. They're probably afraid that somebody else will disappear. "4. Hashima Island, first one back wins." Hashima Island, also known as Battleship Island in Japan, is an abandoned island about 15 kilometers from Nagasaki. The island was in use between 1887 to 1974 as a coal mining facility, but then the coal dried up and the facility was closed. Now, since there was no disaster, there would be plenty of time for people to pack their belongings and leave, but this wasn't the case. The workers were told they could keep their jobs if they went back to the mainland, but jobs would be handed out on a first-come first-served basis. This was enough of a reason for people to literally leave everything behind except the clothes on their backs. The island was abandoned for 30 years until 2009, when it was open to tourists, and has also been used in the James Bond film Skyfall. 5. Krueger, Italy, the untouched statue of the Virgin Mary. If it was possible for Mother Nature to have it in for a place, Krueger, Italy would definitely be at the top of that list. The medieval hill town is located atop a 1,300-foot cliff overlooking a river valley, which sounds pretty scenic, but the location also made it vulnerable to the elements, and that's what ultimately turned it into a ghost town. The town managed to survive the Black Plague in the 1600s, but repeated earthquakes, landslides and floods throughout the latter half of the 20th century forced residents to evacuate and reduced it to ruins. Amazingly, the one thing in the town that remained untouched is a statue of the Virgin Mary, and if you're brave enough to chance getting caught in another natural disaster, guided tours are available. 6. Helltown, Ghost Town. Helltown, Ohio, formerly known as Boston, Ohio, is one of the creepiest ghost towns in the U.S., with reported crying bridges, haunted school buses, human sacrifice sites, and a mutant python. Officially, none of those things had anything to do with why the town was abandoned. In the 1974, the U.S. National Park Service purchased the homes and evacuated the town with the intention of building a park, but it never happened, and the town is closed off and abandoned. Nobody knows whether or not there was another more sinister reason why the government forced everybody out, but it hasn't stopped the legend from growing. 7. Bangar, India, haunted. The town of Bangar, in Rajasthan, India has been labeled one of the scariest, most haunted places in India to visit. In fact, it's so scary that visitors aren't allowed in there after sunset. The legend tells of a magician who was in love with a princess, and when his love was unrequited, he decided to curse the whole city, declaring that it be abandoned forever. 8. Romagnano al Monte, Italy, a ghostly tour guide. The once thriving village of Romagnano al Monte, Italy was leveled by an earthquake in 1980, registering 3,000 casualties at once. The survivors of the quake made the wise decision to rebuild their village 20 kilometers away from the ravished site, and what was left of the town was abandoned. Despite the location being deemed too dangerous to enter for many years, People were still seen wandering the streets dressed in traditional clothing, and tourists have claimed to have been led on a tour of the city by an old woman speaking Italian. What's especially odd about this is that there are no registered tour guides in the city and the government denies her existence. She's also been reported to simply vanish with the blink of an eye. Spooky. 9. Abandoned prison colony, Tasmania, odd noises. If you thought Alcatraz was bad, then you obviously haven't heard about the now abandoned prison colony Port Arthur, Tasmania. Founded in 1830 as a timber station, it was so isolated that the British authorities figured out that it was a great place for a prison, and it was converted into Australia's biggest and most infamous prison colony for reoffenders. The prison closed in 1877, and since then there have been reports of ghosts and odd noises, including a church bell that hasn't been in use for many years. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and to click the bell to be notified of new videos. A Nightmare on Elm Street, 6 Freddy Krueger facts to watch before you sleep. Freddy Krueger isn't just the star of A Nightmare on Elm Street, he's one of the most iconic slasher villains of all time. A seemingly unstoppable force of nature who killed his victims in his sleep, Freddy became so popular that he easily became many fans' favorite horror monsters. Of course, there are some things that newcomers may not know about the character. Here are 6 facts about the famous Springwood slasher. 1. Wes Craven named Freddy after a school bully. When Wes Craven first created Freddy Krueger, many things from the real world and his own life brought the nightmare to life. Some of the small but important influences include Nosferatu, 1922, and a disfigured homeless man Craven once saw. However, the name Freddy Krueger is far more innocent and personal than anyone would assume. Back when he was only 11 years old, Craven was bullied by a schoolmate named Fred Krueger. This childhood event influenced the name of the character and stuck around for the longest time, though it was subtly changed to Freddy instead of Fred. 2. His original screen time was deliberately kept under 10 minutes. Despite being the main antagonist of the original A Nightmare on Elm Street, Freddy only appeared for a total of about 7 minutes at best. There is a strong reason behind this, though, as the filmmakers wanted to make the character very dangerous, scary and also unknown. Needless to say, it worked. 3. His abilities were inspired by real-life events. When Wes Craven and his team were first creating Freddy Krueger, they took heavy inspiration of an event that happened in real life in order to create his powers. According to Craven, it was inspired by a series of deaths that were detailed within the Los Angeles Times. These were a result of various people suffering from their nightmares and dying within their sleep. This helped lay the foundations for Freddy Krueger as a dream demon and cemented him as one of the most dangerous horror monsters of all time. 4. He's a metaphor for child neglect and subconscious fears. According to Robert Englund, Freddy is supposed to represent the children's neglect at the hands of their apathetic parents and their own personal subconscious fears. Considering everything that the teenagers have to go through in the Elm Street movies, from stubbornly ignorant adults to Freddy turning their insecurities into reality, this makes a disturbing amount of sense. 5. His glove appeared in other horror films. The Nightmare on Elm Street franchise has become an icon in both horror and general pop culture. Arguably, all of this is thanks to Freddy Krueger as a character and his iconic bladed glove that has since gone on to score more movie cameos than Freddy himself. For starters, the glove appeared in Jason Goes to Hell, The Final Friday, where an off-screen Freddy drags Jason's mask to hell. This established that Friday the 13th and Elm Street shared the same universe, leading to Freddy vs. Jason. The glove also appeared in Evil Dead 2 inside a tool shed and even in Bride of Chucky, where it is inside an evidence locker. 6. A child molester. Oddly enough, if enough time has passed, society must heal from anything, as the 2010 remake of Nightmare on Elm Street decides to portray Freddy Krueger as the child molester he was originally intended to be. Poor Jackie Earle Haley, we liked your performance as well though, and it's not your fault society is jaded. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and to click the bell to be notified of new videos. "11 Facts About Zombies." 1. A zombie is an undead whose corpse has been brought back to life through a dark ritual. 2. The origin of the zombies. For hundreds of years, sorcerers and shamans have raised corpses through voodoo rituals with the sole purpose of turning these rotting bodies into slaves. Black magic and necromancy managed to turn them into true automatons that, deprived of all intelligence or humanity, are capable of carrying out the most perverse orders. 3. Zombie versus infected. It is easy to confuse a zombie with an infected. In appearance, both are living corpses, however, the differences are noticeable. A zombie does not need to feed. It is kept alive thanks to the sinister ritual that woke it up. 4. Real zombie versus ghoul. It's also interesting to distinguish a zombie from a ghoul. The ghouls have been raised by magic far more powerful than that used to raise a zombie. Generally, the ritual is performed by a necromancer or a sorcerer consecrated to a god of death. Thanks to this powerful magic, in which the soul of the victim is involved, the ghoul retains his intelligence, but not his will, which is subservient to that god. The price of this uprising is paid in souls, the souls of the ghoul's victims, which come to belong to the tributed god. The ghouls do seek to feed on bodies and fresh meat and, for this, they use the ability to paralyze their victims, even, in some cases, turning their victim into a new ghoul. 5. How to distinguish a zombie. Normally, they are raised from their graves a few days after death, so their state of partial or advanced decomposition reveals them as zombies. The rotten smell that surrounds them is also very characteristic, as well as the detached skin, the worms that sprout from all parts of their body and the ragged appearance. However, once raised, the putrefaction process is stopped by the energy of the spell. 6. The reason is unknown, but they tend to act in the dark and are more often seen lurking at night. A zombie does not experience any emotion, nor does it feel pain. His nervous system doesn't work, so his movements are directed or programmed by whoever picked him up. They cannot get sick or be poisoned, and they do not need to rest or sleep. 8. They are abnormally strong and have a resistance and endurance that only black magic can explain. However, their movements are slow and sometimes quite imprecise. 9. Its abilities depend on the creator and what the creator considers useful for his zombie slave. They can range from handling cattle and running a farm, to the use of weapons, as well as knowing how to build or improvise their own. 10. The raised zombie must be programmed with concrete and simple instructions. If the creator of the zombie dies, they keep the last order for life. 11. Zombies can become more dangerous beings than they appear, even to their own creator, as there is a chance that another wizard or necromancer could reprogram the zombie, causing it to turn against its original creator. "10 Facts Behind the Most Haunted Paintings in the World That You Don't Want to Own." Most of these paintings are either hanging in galleries, or locked away. However, people claim that owning copies, prints, or even looking at them can cause uneasiness, feelings of being watched and inexplicable fear. It goes without saying that art is powerful. It can bring people to tears, make them feel joy, and much more. But can pieces of art actually be haunted? In many cases around the world and throughout history, art is rumored to be haunted by the figures within them. Whether just a feeling that people get when around the painting, or actual eerie events occurring in the surroundings, haunted paintings can cause havoc in many ways. I've put together a list of some of the most haunted paintings around the world. 1. The Hands Resist Him. The Hands Resist Him in fact has very normal beginnings, and was painted in 1972 by artist William Stoneham, who at the time was in a contract to produce 2 paintings a month for $200 each. In 1974, the painting was taken to Beverly Hills, California, where it was put on display at the Feingarten Gallery. It came to be known as the eBay Haunted Painting, after the owners recounted paranormal experiences. Said to have been responsible for the deaths of the art gallery owner and the first critic to review it, the painting popped up on eBay in 2000, for sale, where the owners revealed the boy getting out of the painting and the doll coming to life, all on camera. William Stoneham painted the haunting scene using an old photo of himself at age 5 in the Chicago apartment. The hands in the window are said to be other lives, the glass door being the thin veil between waking and dreaming. The doll-like girl is an imagined companion, or guide, through the realm. The title comes from a poem written by his then wife, which reads in part, "The hands resist him, like the secret of his birth." Stoneham's opinion is that the deaths surrounding his supposed haunted painting were a coincidence. 2. The Crying Boy. The artist painted over 60 such works, all of which were said to attract fire. People reported that the fires were caused by the paintings, which always remained untarnished by the fire. Their houses burned down completely, and in some cases, even family members were injured, but never the paintings. Firefighters who were sent on rescues to these houses all reported the same story. The Sun's editor Kelvin McKenzie, credited as the father of the Crying Boy curse, was the one to announce, "Enough is enough, folks. If you are worried about a crying boy picture hanging in your home, send it to us immediately. We will destroy it for you, and that should see the back of any curse." Readers had sent in about 2,500 copies of the print in total. Mackenzie had to scramble for a solution to destroy all of the paintings. He eventually decided to burn them in a mass bonfire near the River Thames. 3. The Dead Mother. People have reported shivering or screaming after having looked at the painting. The painting is inspired from the death of the Edvard Munch's mother, on account of tuberculosis, when he was just 5 years old. Aside from the fact that the painting is said to make people eerily uncomfortable, it has also been said that the eyes of the little girl follow you around and that you can hear mother's sheets rustle. 4. The Portrait of Bernardo de Galvez. When the Galvez Hotel opened in the 1900s, they hung a portrait of Spanish military officer, Bernardo de Galvez, after whom the hotel was named, in the hallway. Soon after, guests began to complain about the portrait, recounting that the eyes in the portrait followed them as they walked past it. Others reported instances of feeling extremely cold and uneasy when standing around the portrait. 5. Man proposes, God disposes. Said to be a haunted painting of the Franklin expedition lost to the Canadian Arctic in 1845. The painting is said to be inspired from a real-life image of the discovered remains that brought back panic in the Canadian government. Every year, during exams, the painting is covered with a Union flag as students fear going mad if they look at it. Or rather, if the painting looks at them. 6. The Anguished Man. The artist painted this with his own blood, and upon completion, he committed suicide. Somehow, the painting came into the possession of one certain, Shawn Robinson's grandmother, who kept the painting hidden away for having been evil. Upon her death, the painting came to Robinson, who documented the mishaps around the painting on video. Currently, the original painting is said to be locked away at a hidden location known to Robinson. 7. The Stagecraft, or the Hanging Man. The painting is an adaptation of a photograph that revealed a hanging man. While painting the image, Laura P. reported to have felt uneasy. She hung it at the local business where workers claimed that the painting moved on its own and papers around it went missing. She decided to hang it in her own home, after which Laura is said to have experienced paranormal occurrences for years, some of which included the apparition of a headless man. 8. Love Letters Replica. On display at the Driscoll Hotel in Austin, Texas, the story behind the painting is unknown. A U.S. senator lost his 4-year-old daughter Samantha Houston after she fell down a flight of stairs, back in 1887, while this painting was on display. People believe that it is Houston's ghost that occupies the painting. Onlookers at the hotel have claimed that the expression of the girl in the painting changes when you look away even for a second. Others reported seeing the apparition of a girl playing with a ball. 9. The Rain Woman. The artist revealed a strange feeling came over her while she was painting the woman. Having completed the painting in a mere 5 hours, the artist, Svetlana Tilets, revealed a hand was guiding her. After completion, owners who bought this painting returned it almost immediately, after having reported insomnia, fear, unexplained sadness and even the feeling of being watched while in the vicinity of this painting. The first purchaser was a lonely businesswoman. She hung it on the wall in her bedroom, and after 2 weeks, Svetlana got a call late at night from the lady stating, "Please take it back, I can't sleep. It feels like there is someone else in my apartment beside me. I even took it off the wall and hid it behind the cupboard, but still I have this feeling." 10. Untitled Nightmarish Painting. The artist Beksinski surrounded himself with concepts of death and channeled that into his works. The artist lost his wife in 1998, and a year later, his son committed suicide. He, himself, was brutally murdered simply because he refused a $100 loan to a man. This has added even more of a fearful air to his painting. It is believed that looking at the painting for too long can lead to one's death.